Welcome to the Hammer Territory Podcast. My name is Shawn Coleman, and it is a pleasure to be with you once again. Hope wherever you are and wherever you are listening, you're excited for this edition of the Hammer Territory Podcast, because I know I am for two reasons. Number one, we have a win to recap, a 6-3 win for the Braves over the Orioles in what was an impressive pitching performance and offensive performance. And Stephen Tolbert is back from his travels seeing the Braves in the greater Maryland area. But Stephen, glad to have you back, sir. Hope you had a great trip.
What's up, Sean? Hey, buddy. Yeah, man, it's good to be home. For a lot of reasons, it's good to be home. But I miss doing the show. Shout out to Scott and you and Brad for holding down the fort. I know we had some good episodes. I know Justin Toscano came on with Scott while I was gone. I know you did a show, Brad did a show. So I appreciate you guys, of course, covering for me. But yeah, it was a fun trip. We'll talk about a little bit more as we go on the show. But yeah, we got a win today, and that's if we had come on here kind of having to talk about the sixth loss in a row, the tone of this show would have been much different. But got a much needed win today. Of course, we'll talk about it. But it's always good to do these with you, buddy.
Absolutely. And let's start there. Of course, you in the Hammer Territory Podcast, part of the Foul Territory family of podcasts. But, and a very much, perhaps his most impressive start so far for the Braves and Reynaldo Lopez. We'll actually get to him in just a moment, because I want to talk about the offense, because any type of good performance from the offense, that's where we start. And in this game in particular, Stephen, we were 3 for 16 with runners in scoring position. Yes, that's been, the normal trend over the past 2 months, but we'll set that negative to the side. Let's focus on the positives. The Braves got the ball rolling early in the first inning. At one point, they were 1 for 1 with a 2-run double off the bat of Marcell Ozuna. They got some runs early. They got 3 overall hits with runners in scoring position. But to me, Stephen, I know they were 3 for 16, but the 16 opportunities is what stands out to me. That was the result of several hitters who had been struggling recently having good at-bats. Ozzie Albies 4 hits. Adam Duvall had his best offensive game in quite a while. Michael Harris, a good one as well. While we didn't see just a ton of runs, the overabundance of opportunities certainly is a positive, and it was much needed to stop this losing streak.
Yeah, I mean, listen, 3 for 16 with runners at scoring position is a bit of a double-sided coin, right? You can focus on the 3 or you can focus on the 16. Just getting that many opportunities is a positive for this team. Just any offensive life is a positive. I mean, like you said, Ozzie had 4 hits. Braves had 12 hits overall. Just traffic on the bases all day. Just a normal variance in terms of runners and scoring position outcomes. And the Braves probably scored 10 or 11 runs in that game. But they got out with 6. So yeah, you could focus on the 3, you could focus on the 16. We're going to focus on the 16 because the Braves won the game. Had the Braves lost the game, we would probably be focusing on the 3. So, but yeah, I mean, Ozzie against lefties, we know, is typically a pretty good matchup for Braves fans. I like Ozzie batting in the 2-hole against the lefties. I don't love it as much against righties, but that's a separate conversation. The Braves don't have a ton of options at the top of the lineup right now, so they're just going to have to kind of make do with what they have. But Ozzie against lefties is always a good matchup. Of course, Marcell has been the best hitter on the team. Duvall had a decent day. Kelenic has had a pretty good stretch here. He's been one of the few guys that hasn't been slumping. So yeah, overall, it's nice to see runners on base. It's nice to see opportunities. It's nice to see some offense, just some hits. Honestly, I mean, we've been so desperate for runs lately that just having guys on base, just having the threat of offense was nice to see. And obviously, they came through with a few of them to get 6 runs on the board, which is more than they've scored in a while. I think they scored 8 runs in the first game against Boston on this trip, and they haven't scored more than 5 runs in any of the games. I think they've scored 8 before today. They had scored 16 runs in 7 games, which is barely over 2 runs a game. So 6 runs, of course, is tremendous. Obviously, you would like to cash in on more of those opportunities so that the tying run doesn't come to the plate like it did in the 9th inning. Usually when you leave that many guys on base, you don't win the game, you pay for it. But the Braves had such an overabundance of guys on base that the few times they came through were enough to hold down and win the game.
Absolutely. And it was just great to see. It was just nice to see opportunities early, and it was nice to see late the Braves be able to put some insurance runs in place after Kyle Stowers hit that 3-run homer off Pierce Johnson. It was great to see the Braves be able to respond. So just the offense came to life again. The execution certainly still has a ways to go, but it was nice to get a victory, and it be because of how good the offense was. But I can tell you, whether the Braves are playing well or not, it's always a great experience to go to the ballpark. And Stephen, I know you have a firsthand account of this here recently with your recent trips, but I can tell you this, Stephen. When you're trying to find tickets to a Braves game, you have to feel good that a place you could go is SeatGeek as a one-stop shop for any type of sporting, concert, or just event in general that you want to attend.
Yeah, it's a tremendous help to be able to get anywhere you want to go. Very convenient. So we appreciate SeatGeek as being a sponsor. But yeah, next time you're at a game, you go on a trip like me, multiple games, make sure to check out SeatGeek for all your ticket needs.
SeatGeek is the official ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, so they have you covered for all the baseball ticket needs that you have. 28 million downloads. It's the #1 rated ticketing app. 70,000 events on SeatGeek's concerts, festivals, sports, and baseball season is in full swing, so you don't want to miss out. SeatGeek has tickets to every game, and the great thing about it is that it has a rating system of 1 to 10. Each ticket is rated from 1 to 10, so if it's green, it's good. If it's red, it's not so good. So make sure you check out the rating systems. And you know that we have you covered. If you use the promo code HAMMER, you'll get $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first ticket with the promo code HAMMER. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app. So, Stephen, before we get to, your firsthand experience of seeing the Braves recently, it wasn't, such a good experience with what you saw on the field, but still awesome experience to be in the ballpark. Do want to get your thoughts on Reynaldo Lopez. Listen, he's been a frequent topic of conversation between you and I on any, podcast or segment covering the Braves. Reynaldo Lopez is frequently brought up, but I want to go with it from a different perspective now. I think we're to the point now, Stephen, to where we're not just talking about him being a bright spot on this team. We're not just talking about him being one of the best free agent pickups from, the offseason. I know that he likely is not going to continue the level that he's at throughout the whole season. Regression probably is going to come at some point. But I will say that as of right now, with how awesome he is, 1.69 ERA through 13 starts, one of his better starts against one of the toughest lineups that he's faced on Thursday. Right now, I don't think it's far-fetched to say Reynaldo Lopez is clearly one of the best pitchers in the National League, and I think has one of the best cases of any arm in the National League to represent them in the All-Star game this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's certainly going to be, well, I don't want to say certainly. There's been a lot of really good pitching performances in the National League this year. So I'm not going to say certainly, but he is definitely going to be in high consideration for the All-Star game. Him and Chris Sale both, and probably Max Fried, honestly. But there's a lot of really good starting pitchers, and they only take usually like 6 or 7 guys. So, Ronaldo might lose out to a numbers game, but he's just been incredible. I never in a million years saw this coming. He's got an ERA. What I think after today, I looked it up. It's like a 1.7 ERA after today. Another 6 shutout innings. The strikeouts have really jumped up, which helps his peripherals. He's not living by good batted ball luck as much as, he's getting his fair amount of strikeouts. I think he's up over 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, which is a strong number. You can win everything you need to win with the number that strong. He's not walking anybody, which is very impressive. He's still got some batted ball numbers that are favorable that should regress a little bit, but he's got a 1.7 ERA, but he's got a 2.83 FIP. So it's not like he's 3 runs, he's got like a 3-run spread there. I mean, a 2.8 FIP is still fantastic. He's just been amazing. Today he had 99 miles an hour on the radar gun, I think for the first time all year as a starter. So he's got more in the tank. He definitely holds some. This is a guy as a reliever we saw throw, he was throwing 100, 101 as a reliever. So he's definitely got more in the tank. Obviously, when you throw 6, 7 innings, when you're throwing 100 pitches, you can't max effort like that. But when he wants it, when he needs it in big spots, he can go up to 98, 99, and probably even 100 if he needed to for a couple of pitches. So it's been incredible. I don't want to I am always cautious about this. I don't want to reset the expectation for him where this is the new expectation. I don't think that's fair. I think he should be considered more of a 3, 4, 5 starter where he's going to be, if he gives you an ERA in the threes, then you're ecstatic with that, and you take it all day long. I don't think a 1.7 ERA is his new baseline talent level. That's absurd. That's Cy Young stuff. But we keep saying he's going to regress. He's going to regress. I still think it's going to happen. Some of the numbers are a little too obvious not to, but it's not as clear cut as it was earlier in the season where he wasn't striking a ton of guys out, and he was very much living off some good batted ball numbers and stuff that was clearly going to regress. And now it's not so clear. I mean, he could definitely run an ERA in the twos the rest of the year if he keeps pitching like this. I don't think something in the ones is realistic, but he's been incredible. I mean, he's been a godsend. Him and Chris Sale they have saved the Braves in ways we don't even understand. I mean, if they, the only time the Braves win games lately is if they really just throw out elite pitching. And obviously Pierce Johnson had a rough day today, but if that hadn't happened, then the Braves would have thrown a shutout today. So, but the offense was able to cover a few runs up for the first time in a while. That was good to see. But Ronaldo's been incredible, and I'm so happy for him. All the credit goes in the world goes to him, Alex, for making the move. That was not a move anybody saw coming. Signing Lopez, turning him into a starter. It was so odd that we weren't even sure they were being honest about it. I mean, we were talking about, if this is kind of a smokescreen to see if they can go get another starter. But they were dead serious about it. They were dead set on it from day one. They said it from day one. He's going to start. He wants to start. He thinks he can start. And he has, and he's been unbelievable. So all the credit in the world to him. It has been a lifesaver for the Braves.
Yeah, over the past 100 years, there have only been 5 instances in which a pitcher in his first 13 starts with a franchise has done like Reynaldo Lopez has a 1.7 ERA or lower and 70 strikeouts across those 13 starts. Al Leiter back in 1998, and then here recently Justin Verlander with the Astros in 2017, but also in 2008 Edison Valquez with the Reds and CC Sabathia, with the Milwaukee Brewers, and then Reynaldo Lopez this year. So that just shows how rare it is for a pitcher to come in and perform at the level that Reynaldo Lopez has been doing in a new setting, in a new role. That's what makes it even more impressive. So it was quite awesome to see. And to your point, Stephen, a month ago we were talking a bit about regression for him because he had an ERA, I think around 2.5, but his FIP was at 4. Well, that FIP, going down now to 2.83, again, it just shows that the secondary, the underlying metrics are supporting the quality effort. So it's going to be great to see. But something else that I've been waiting to hear about, Stephen, is your firsthand experience of seeing the Braves in person. I know that a point that you have brought up that I think is very valid is that the Braves have had some atrocious luck at times when it comes to balls that they put in play. I know you saw that firsthand, but they've also had some pretty atrocious approaches at the plate, in terms of stuff they can control. But just a couple of things that stood out for you from the performances that you saw in Washington and Baltimore. Maybe not all negative, but definitely, I'm sorry that you had to see the baseball games that you saw during the stretch that you did.
Yeah, listen, and I had a lot of people sending tweets at me to this similar effect of, sorry that this is the baseball you're watching. What I will say is the worst day at a baseball field is still better than most days. Still better than working and having to grind away a day. So, yes, it was not the best baseball that I watched over the last week. Obviously, the Braves were in the middle of a 5-game losing streak through all of it. But the first game we watched, the first game I was at was Chris Sale's game in Washington, D.C. It was the Friday night game, and he pitched outstanding. I mean, he was lights out. He was nasty. The offense didn't show up, obviously, and they lost. I think they lost 2-1 in that game. But he was incredible. I had never seen him pitch live before. I was at a pretty good vantage point where you could see, exactly how uncomfortable of an at bat he is. His stuff was nasty. Obviously, he was coming off that rough game against Oakland, so it was good to see him bounce back. And then, so I went to the Friday night game, and then I went to the Sunday game. that was originally going to be Max Fried, but then it obviously turned into Hurston Waldrop's major league debut. That was a weird game. That was a really weird game. Hurston was pitching really well, and then gave up like 7 runs in like 10 minutes. It snowballed on him quick. I think he probably got a little flustered. He started walking a lot of guys after that 3-run homer that he gave up, and then he got pulled, and the first pitch that Aaron Bummer threw was a 3-run double from Abrams, and that pretty much ended Waldrop's day, in terms of his line. So, but it was still cool to see. It was really cool to see, a guy's major league debut. I thought he looked good at times. The splitter is a real pitch. The fastball obviously is, it's 97, 98, 99. He's got real velocity. He's got to work on the slider. He's got to work on his other breaking stuff. I don't think it's fully there, but the splitter is a real pitch. And, that's going to be interesting. I wasn't sure if he'd get another start after that one. I thought maybe he'd get sent back down to work on that stuff a little bit more, but obviously we learned today that he is going to start. He's going to start the last game against Tampa this week. So that's cool. And then I went to, see, those are the two DC games. And then I went to the Tuesday game in Baltimore, which was the Max Fried game. That was probably the most frustrating game just because the offense was just nowhere to be found. I mean, if Sean Murphy hit that ball, I was right there. Sean Murphy hit that ball 398 feet and to left field, and it didn't go out because that's the only place in the majors where you can hit a ball that far and not go out to left field. And then the next inning, the guy hits a 3-run homer for Baltimore. It was just the other two games were fun to watch. It was cool to see Hurston. It was cool to see Sale. That game was very annoying just because the Braves had, other than that shot by Murphy, the Braves just had no life on offense. So, but you know what? Like I said, it's the worst day you spend at a ballpark is still better than most. We're doing this thing. I'm trying to do this thing. Once they came out with a balanced schedule a couple years ago, I decided I wanted to see the Braves play in all the road parks. I wanted to go see all the away stadiums, but see a Braves game in that stadium. And so that's we did Boston last year. We did DC and Baltimore this year. So that's just something we're doing. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had a ton of fun. The baseball, or at least the results aside, spending time in the parks. Camden Yards is a really, really cool park. It's not terribly old. It's only about 40 years old. It's not like Wrigley or Fenway, but it feels kind of older than that. It's got a lot of character. It's got a lot of unique features. They've got the big warehouse in right field. It's a really cool park. I had a lot of fun. DC is a cool city to be in, even if you're not watching baseball. So it was a really fun trip. The baseball sucked, but that's baseball for you. But I highly recommend it if you haven't done DC, Baltimore. That's a great trip, and it was a lot of fun for us.
Absolutely. And I jokingly said what I said. I agree with you 100%, especially when you can go to another ballpark, especially one, that has the history of Camden Yards, and you can see, a new place, for a team that we see frequently play the Braves in the Nationals. I'm sure it was a great time, and always enjoy your perspective. But one other thing I want to ask you about, as we get into, some of Alex Anthopoulos' comments from yesterday. Alex Anthopoulos, I talked about it on the pod from Wednesday, but want to get your perspective on a few things, Stephen. One thing that Alex talked about was the fact that, yes, the Braves are using a 6-man rotation. It's their way of being proactive for them to be able to keep, their best arms as fresh as possible going into the playoffs. But the thing that I'll say is this, is that I don't think something that has really been mentioned that much is the fact that the Braves faced one of the best lineups in baseball. Like, the Orioles are a top 3 team in baseball right now with one of the better lineups in the game. And the Braves kept them under 4 runs in all 3 of these games. I think that that's noteworthy. And I also think that Spencer Schwellenbach's performance from Wednesday's game was absolutely outstanding as well. He pitched more than well enough to get the victory. The offense just wasn't able to support him. But just your thoughts, you gave your thoughts on Hurston Waldrop, but just your thoughts on the 6-man rotation moving forward, the effectiveness of that, to keep these arms fresh as we progress, but also the experience gained by Waldrop and Schwellenbach, who after this season, they could potentially use this experience as a reference point for as they take on bigger roles in the rotation in the future.
Yeah, so the 6-man rotation is interesting because the reason teams don't use a 6-man rotation, kind of the detriment of that strategy, is that it's effectively taking starts away from your best pitchers and giving them to your fifth, sixth, seventh best pitchers, which is why teams don't typically do it, right? Like if you have high level pitchers at the top of your rotation, you want those guys out there as often as possible is the logic, and that's why a lot of teams don't do it. And the Braves haven't done it. If you go look at Alex Anthopoulos' history with the team, they have almost never done a 6-man rotation. I think what this is a response to, and I've talked about this a little on Twitter. The regular season matters a lot less than it used to. It just, when you have expanded playoffs, and everybody who makes the playoffs essentially has the same chances. There's very little difference between being the 6th seed or the 1 seed. I know people talk about the days off and getting to set your pitching, but we've seen in the past where that can be just as much of a detriment as it can be a helper. When you have expanded playoffs and there's not a ton to play for in terms of where you're seated, the regular season just doesn't matter that much. And I hate to say that because I love regular season baseball. It's one of my favorite parts of baseball. It's what makes baseball unique. I wish that baseball had done something different and protected its regular season more, but they didn't. They went the other way. They expanded playoffs. They made it even more useless. And that's kind of where we're at. And I think this is a response to that because, like I said, typically when you have a 6-man rotation, you're taking starts away from your best pitchers and giving them to your 6th, 7th, 8th best pitchers. But in a world where the regular season doesn't matter as much, the positive of a 6-man rotation is you keep your elite starters healthier for October. And I think the Braves, the value judgment they've made is that, yes, we may not win as many games in the regular season, but what is winning 104, 105 games done for us for the last couple of years? We need to get to the postseason with our pitchers healthy because that's how we won in 21 when Max Fried and Charlie Morton were dominating every start they made. The bullpen was, dominant in October, and that's how the Braves won a World Series. I think the Braves have switched their thinking because it's no longer about getting your best pitchers out there as much as possible. It's getting your best pitchers as much rest as possible and getting them as healthy as possible to October. And I agree with that. I think it's a smart move. I would not be surprised if they were if they did a 6-man rotation most of the year. Chris Sale has had a long injury history. Everybody knows about it. Reynaldo Lopez has been a reliever the last 3 years. Max Fried is coming off of an injury-riddled year last year. They've already lost Spencer Strider. Like, keeping this rotation healthy is a critical piece to anything the Braves want to accomplish. So I think it's a change of thinking of getting your best pitchers out there as much as possible to now getting your pitchers as much rest and getting them as healthy as possible to October.
Absolutely. And it's a very smart move by the Braves in order to keep their pitching staff as fresh as possible for their playoff pursuit. Well, if your pursuit is to be as healthy as possible, one smart move that you can make from a nutrition standpoint is trusting AG1 supplement.
Eric Kratz here from FT. I'm a former athlete that really pays attention to his routine. And AG1 every morning before my workouts is something that gets my day going.
Hey, Braun here. AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that delivers daily nutrients and gut health support, and it's backed by multiple research studies so you can trust what you're putting in your body.
Unlike other products which only test their ingredients in isolation, AG1 tests their formula as a whole.
Ready for this stat? 97% of people in a research study felt more energy after 30 days of drinking AG1. If I had to recommend one product to support whole body health, it's AG1, and that's why FT is excited to have them as a new partner. Starting your journey with AG1 is a win. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/foul. That's drinkag1.com/FOUL. Go check it out, FT fam.
So, Stephen, of course, the other thing that stood out, another storyline besides the offense struggling, was that Brian Snitker started trying, to do something that he usually does not do. And that is, shuffling the lineup back and forth. A couple of weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, you and I discussed, what is it going to look like at the top of the order? And it necessarily hasn't necessarily changed that much in terms of the top of the order. It's still Michael Harris and Ozzie Albies mainly, but we've seen Marcelo Zuna shifted a few times. We've seen Austin Riley shifted down. We've seen some adjustments at the bottom of the order. The one main takeaway that I have from all this is that Marcelo Zuna should be batting third no matter what. He should bat in the first inning. He should try to get as many productive bats as possible with people on base. He should be in that third hole. But in terms of, Adam Duvall's struggles here recently, Kelenic, kind of getting hot, just what do you make of some of the lineup shifts? And, kind of like me in saying Ozuna should definitely bat third, is there anything that stands out to you that should be a mainstay of the Braves lineup approach at this point?
That's a good question. I would say Arcia needs to bat ninth every game, no matter what. The caveat, of course, is the lineup doesn't matter that much. I will say this. I wasn't as upset as other people were when they moved Ozuna to 5 for Riley. Like, I understand. Trust me, I completely understand everybody's point that Ozuna's been your best hitter. You want him batting third, or you want him batting in the first inning. The only problem with that logic is there's been a lot of studies done on like lineup construction and the best place to put your best hitters. And typically speaking, the third spot in the lineup is a bit overrated just because of how often that spot comes out with 2 out and nobody on in the first inning. Whereas like the 4th spot in the lineup, if somebody gets on, anytime that spot comes up in the first inning, it's coming up with a runner on. So like, I understand what people are saying. I understand why people are mad, but there is arguments to be made, but like the 2nd spot in the order, the 4th spot in the order are more important than the 3rd spot in the order, just from a value standpoint. So, and listen, the Braves need the guys who are hitting in the spots to hit better, regardless of where they're hitting, right? Because there's no way to hide guys. It doesn't matter where you put them. Austin Riley learned this lesson the hard way over, this week against Baltimore, but it doesn't matter where you are in the lineup. If you're going bad, the big spot will find you. If there's a bases loaded situation, you're going to be up. If there's, 2 on, 2 outs, we need a big hit, it's going to be you. That doesn't matter if you're batting 2nd or 4th or 5th or 6th. I mean, Orlando Arcia, every time Orlando Arcia bats like 5th or 6th in the lineup, inevitably the biggest spot in the game comes with him at the plate. So, the Braves just need their guys to hit better. Austin Riley has to hit better. There's no way forward for the Braves with Austin Riley hitting the way he's hitting. Like, you can't rearrange your lineup enough to make up for that. At some point, you're just kind of rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Like, you need your best hitters to hit better. Austin Riley has to hit better. Adam Duvall has been atrocious since Acuna went down. Michael Harris is still really struggling to put anything together. Before today, Ozzie Albies was in a really bad funk. He obviously had 4 hits today, so hopefully that gets him going. But Matt Olson's been a bit better, but still inconsistent. All of them have struggled with runners in scoring position. So, yes, lineup matters to an extent, but it doesn't matter past the extent of your best hitters just need to hit better. And so I'm not as worried about that. I would put RC at the bottom of the order. I think he's the worst hitter. But yeah, other than that, I don't really have a strong opinion.
Well, then let's get a bit more of your opinion on Austin Riley, because I agree with you from a couple of perspectives. The most important factor moving forward for this team is Austin Riley coming back to being an elite hitter. That's just the simple truth. He probably has as high of a ceiling, than nearly anybody on this team. I'd say it's hard to argue against Ozuna right now, hard to argue against what Matt Olson did last year, but those guys are performing right now. Austin Riley, he's struggling, yes, from a results standpoint. But me and Scott talked about it last week a bit, just looking at, why has he been struggling? And the thing that stood out was that he's seeing more fastballs than he ever has before. He's seeing them at a higher velocity. But interesting, I looked a bit deeper into things today. The amount of balls that he's putting in play at 100 miles per hour or more in terms of exit velocity, this year he's putting the same amount of balls in play from a frequency standpoint that he has, in the past. But what stands out, Stephen, is that of those balls that are 100 miles per hour or more off the bat for Austin Riley, nearly 30% of them have been ground balls between 2001, 2022, and 2023. Half of them are ground balls this year. So I know that looked at some of his at bats, firsthand, and some of them it just seemed like he was struggling badly. But even when he's making solid contact, a lot of the contact is on the ground. Just what are your thoughts about Austin Riley? It seems like that things can turn around for him quickly, but that ground ball frequency certainly has to be a spot. The ball just has to go in the air more.
Yeah, I mean his ground balls are definitely up, and like you said, in terms of when he hits the ball hard, especially his ground balls are up. He's got 3 homers for the year. Austin Riley has 3 homers for the entire year. We're in the middle of June. I mean, yeah, he missed about 10 days with that side injury, but he's got 3 homers in June. And our 3 homers, as we sit here in the middle of June. So yeah, he needs more power. He's got to get the ball off the ground. He's in a kind of a strikeout funk right now. You can tell it's mental at this point. I mean, he's struggling with his swing take decisions. You can tell by the pitches he's, swinging out the pitches he's taking. It's all mental, right? He is in his head. Snitz talked about it a lot. When these guys start struggling, it becomes a mental battle as much as a physical battle. He just needs some good results. He needs to take some pressure off of himself. Every time you fail in one of those positions, and he had a rough day today. I think he was over 5 today, and I think 4 of them came with runners in scoring positions. So, that's not going to help. But, every time you fail in one of those positions, you just put even more pressure on yourself the next time up, and then more pressure the next time, and more like it's a brutal snowball effect. So, he just needs some good outcomes. A bloop hit, a ball over the wall would do wonders for him. A line drive that finds a gap, just any kind of positive would be huge for him, and then just build on it from there. But the amount of pressure he's putting on himself right now, he is every time he goes up to the plate, it's like 0-2. He's swinging at a bad pitch, taking a good pitch. Like you can just tell he's like, what's happening? Like what's going on? Like he can't, I'm sure he doesn't understand what's happening. So, it's brutal for the Braves, of course, especially without Ronnie. Austin signed the biggest contract in the history of the franchise. And that's part of this too. I mean, we're crazy if we don't talk about that. Like there's pressure that comes with signing the biggest contract in franchise history. And every time he's not performing, I'm sure he's thinking about that. And I'm sure he hears that, social media can be a brutal place when you're not doing well. And I'm sure he's caught a lot of crap for it. And that just adds to the pressure. So he needs some good results, some good at bats, take a walk, take some good pitches, kind of what made Austin Riley turn into Austin Riley was his ability to not swing at those bad pitches, not swing at those sliders away. He got really, really good at taking those pitches and then punishing mistakes in the zone. He just needs to get back to that guy and take some of the pressure off. There's still a long way to go. Austin can still write a whole different story for the 2024 season, especially if he has a big second half, a big October. No one's going to remember this, but he needs some positive results. And, hopefully that starts on Friday, when they get home versus Tampa.
Absolutely. And this is typically the time of year where you see Austin Riley really get going. I meant to look at it, haven't as of yet. But if you remember over the past couple of years, I believe it was 2022, he had that incredible month of July, which resulted in the $200 million contract extension. Last year, he really started taking off in June as well. So it would be a great time for Austin Riley to get going. And there's no better time than present. And I think that's what kind of defines this upcoming series with the Tampa Bay Rays. The Braves after the Rays, they've got, they're going home. But after the Rays, they face the Tigers, they face the Yankees, and they face the Pirates in another series, for the rest of this month. There's some pretty notable starting pitching that the Braves could face in those series. This series against the Rays, I think, comes down to 2 things. For the Braves, you just want to get a series win. You want to get a series win after the struggles that you've had over the past 3 weeks or so. But also what kind of defines this series is that kind of like the Braves, the Rays have a lot of underperforming offensive players as well. Which team is really going to see one of their better players step up to have the best offensive series of, all the players who will be playing this weekend. I think that's what defines it. Which team is going to have the better, offensive approach and really start to put things together offensively. The Braves are going to have Chris Sale, then Charlie Morton, then Hurston Waldrop making his second career start. You'd love to go ahead and get Friday and Saturday's win. But to me, again, Stephen, it's, the Braves offense really needing to find a foothold and find some success. And whatever way possible, they need to get that series win. That's two things that stand out to me. What stands out to you about this weekend series against the Rays?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's very funny. If you look at the two teams, there's a lot of similarities. The Rays were, of course, expected to be one of the best teams in baseball. They've been one of the best teams in baseball for the last, I don't know, 5-7 years. How far back you want to go, but you look at their lineup. I mean, it's maybe struggling worse than the Braves. I mean, Randy Arozarena has a sub 600 OPS for the season. Sub 600. He's got a 590 OPS right now. Brendan Lau's got a sub 700 OPS. Yandy Diaz has a sub 700 OPS. Jose Siri has a sub 700 OPS. It's just a lot of that. It's a lot of really bad offense. And they've got guys who can pitch. They've always got guys who can pitch. They've always got a deep bullpen. But, they're not a big market team. They depend on kind of their 3 or 4 really good hitters to be, really good hitters. And that's kind of what they haven't done this year. So, and obviously Braves fans, all that sounds very familiar. So, like you said, it's going to be what offense kind of finds itself a little bit. It's going to be good pitching. The Braves have Sale going, so that always helps. Charlie Morton and then Waldrop, and we'll see how he does for his second start. And I imagine it'll go better than his first, but yeah, which offense can get going? The Braves will be back home, which will be nice. But yeah, one of these offenses got to get going at some point. Hopefully it's Atlanta. They're long past due. Getting 6 runs today was a big deal. 16 plate appearances with runners in scoring position is a good thing. Obviously, you'd like to capitalize on more of them than they did today, but 6 runs, got to win. Hopefully they can build on something. I looked this up today. It's been like since the middle of April, the Braves have scored 5 runs in back-to-back games, like 5+ runs in back-to-back games. They did it in that series against Texas, like in middle of April, where d'Arnaud had that 3-homer game. That's the last time the Braves scored 5+ runs in 2 games in a row. So, they scored 6 today. It would be wonderful to come out tomorrow, put another 6-7 runs on the board and see if you can get something going, see if you can get hot. Alex talked about this in his interview. The playoffs are still very managed. Like they're the National League overall is pretty down this year. Obviously, everybody knows Philly's been great, but even if the Braves don't win the division, like making the playoffs is still very manageable. Like it's still in front of them. They still have a high percentage odds of making the playoffs. They just got to get going. They just got to get their guys going. That's the most important thing. Get Austin Riley going. Adam Duvall against right-handers has been just brutal. Get him going. Michael Harris is still, struggling with swinging at decent pitches, taking bad pitches. Hopefully this game will get Ozzie going, get Matt a little more consistent. Hopefully Ozuna doesn't cool down at all because the Braves can't afford that right now. But get their guys going. Just get your guys going and then see what happens.
Absolutely. And you'd love to win this series, but at the very least, hey, just have more home runs than your opponent in a series. As good as it was to see things Thursday, we still didn't see a home run. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, none of our runs came off a home run. Matt Olson obviously hit a big one on Wednesday, but yeah, just get maybe out homer your opponent. I don't care how bad they're struggling. Just have that under your belt. So if we can get a series win, we can hit more homers in the Rays. I'll take that as a great weekend. And of course, want to put it out there to Braves country that it's an awesome weekend for baseball. You got the Braves returning home, coming off a needed win. You've got Drake Baldwin and Nacho Alvarez, who are now at Gwinnett. Nacho Alvarez hit his first home run, I believe, in AAA earlier today. And then, of course, you got the College World Series with a certain team being number 1 in the nation. Stephen, you may not have a comment on that. But all joking aside, it's going to be a lot of fun this weekend. A ton of baseball to watch. But Stephen, it's great to have you back. Anything else you have for us as we wrap up this edition of the Hammer Territory Podcast, a winning edition of the Hammer Territory Podcast?
No, it's good to be home. Like I said, I appreciate all you guys covering the podcast. If you haven't checked out the episodes, the last week or so. Make sure you do that. Like I said, Scott had a great episode with Justin Toscano of the AJC. Justin had a lot of really good insights. You should definitely go listen to that. There's been 3 or 4 episodes since I've been gone, so make sure to check them all out. We appreciate it as always. Thanks for the support. It's been amazing. And yeah, go Braves.
Absolutely. And also, hey, I know it was a week ago, but the content's still there. Stephen's conversation with Mark Bowman was an awesome conversation as well. Had a lot of insight and also some good laughs. So make sure you check that one out as well. But you can find Stephen Tolbert at B_outliers on X/Twitter. You can find me at StatsSAC in the same place. You can find Hammer Territory across all forms of social media. Of course, part of the Foul Territory family of podcasts, and just hit that subscribe button wherever you enjoy listening to your podcast. That's what will be for free and any time that you subscribe. For Stephen Tolbert, my name's Shawn Coleman. Go Braves. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory podcast.